gatekeepers, and they're called independent officers. You've got a controller of budgets, you've got a very, very independent office of the Auditor General, you have other ways of accounting for this money. If you just look back, Annette, over the last 14 years, what are your perspectives on this, on how then our accountability has gone? Over to you, Annette.
Thank you, Latif, and good evening to everyone that has made it to this space this evening. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Great. So thank you so much. And happy birthday to the Constitution, because on the 27th of August, that's next week on Tuesday, the Constitution will be 14 years. And so as we commemorate Katiba at 14, it's time to look back and ask ourselves, a 14-year child is one that knows right and wrong. A 14-year child knows the direction they're headed. A 14-year child has really formed to a point where we know the direction it's taking. We know whether it's a good child or a bad child. We know how to direct it if at all it's not taking the right direction. And so I believe right now as Kenyans, we are clear that the Constitution is either working or it's not working. If we are to go with the recent happenings, we can honestly say it's not headed in the right direction. We can authoritatively say that whatever we see happening as regards governance is not what was envisioned in the Constitution. And so looking at the accountability question, which is very crucial in matters governance, and also those that are bestowed the responsibility to ensure good governance, it's very crucial, because what it does is it fosters trust and also ensures that ethical behavior is also maintained. And at the end of the day, we end up seeing leadership. So when we talk about the Constitution, it came into being and put in place frameworks and even institutions that were designed to promote transparency and also accountability, and in the context of public finance, just prevent the misuse of power, and also which has then a bearing on the mismanagement of public resources. But we end up asking ourselves at this particular moment, some of the institutions that were set or put in place, including the independent offices under Chapter 15 that Latif, you've talked about, are they performing above par, or are they discharging their mandate as they ought to have? We also have institutions such as that of the National Assembly, the Senate as well. We have the county assemblies at county level, the executive at both national and at the county level, which broadly, if they are well coordinated, well funded, then it was the expectation of the people and that of the Constitution that would have good governance in the sense that public resources would be put into good use so that they benefit the ordinary Kenyan. They allow for effective functioning of devolution, which is also provided for under that Constitution. But 14 years down the line, is this what we are seeing happening? And we'll just substantiate this with some good examples. For example, we have these independent fiscal offices, like that of the controller of budget. So the control of budget basically looks at both county government and national government MDAs, ensuring that they adhere to the public finance management framework in their operations as regards planning and even budgeting. But then we see that there has still been a struggle. We still see that when you talk about budgets, they're not in the interest of the people. And I would give a good example. The law under the Public Finance Management Act, Section 107 and also 15, 15 that's at the national government and 107 at the county government, requires that at least 30% of the revenues are set aside to support matters development, and not more than 70 goes towards recurrent. And so what we have ended up seeing happening is that county governments and also at national government playing and trying to beat the law, because the law said at least 30% in terms of allocation. They end up allocating, it's approved, but then come up with supplementary budgets. With this supplementary budget, they end up removing monies from development and also taking it back towards recurrent. So what we end up seeing is that people are not able to see services because county governments are trying to beat the law, are trying to play around, because the law says allocate. They say, okay, we have allocated past it, but because the law did not just say spend, so they do not end up spending. But that is wrong, because I believe that the drafters of the Constitution, in their wisdom, did not just intend that this law stops at allocating. You allocate with the intention of spending. But because that is missing, so people do not get services because somebody has to advance their interests. We also see the control of budget continuously raise concerns that even during spending, absorption does not happen. Monies may be there. Recurrent will be absorbed, but development monies are not absorbed. And again, we now see at national government, and Kebaso, thank you for the good job, where he is unearthing the launching of ghost projects that are costing the taxpayers money. This has been allowed to happen for the longest time because nobody has spoken to it. Nobody, or rather Kenyans, were not following. So this is something Kenyans are coming to learn at this particular point. But what has happened over the years? So we see impunity reign even as regards to public finance management. And yet, when you talk about power, when you talk about the president and even the county government, the governors as well, I mean, they are in power to manage resources, including public finance. And so if this is not being put into good use, then we do not even have business continuing to have this devolved system of government, or having leaderships that at the end of the day are not inspiring hope in Kenyans. And then talk about Auditor General. So, I mean, this is an office that is being kept afloat by taxpayers' money. A lot of money goes into the auditing processes of these counties. They will then eventually give us reports in 6 months. The Constitution says this report should be tabled with the National Assembly. What do we see? We have seen reports that come out 7 months, 8 months later, when these governors have been engaged in corruption, so that at least their names, they could be sanitized and removed on, or rather their reports are not seen as those that have violated the public finance management. So we are seeing the beating of the law, but I think for me, even as these independent offices are placed here, we believe that there's really no power that has been guaranteed to them. And I was thinking in the next life, if we should ever have a constitutional moment, offices such as that of Auditor General should be given prosecutorial powers, so that if at all they find an individual culpable, then action needs to be taken. But at this point, that is not happening. We have not seen any person being prosecuted because of some of the illegalities or criminalities that have been pointed out by the offices of the Auditor General. The EACC, for example, I mean, when this government came into being, we saw the dropping of cases of high-profile individuals. Eventually, these individuals are appointed into high-level offices. But I mean, we are happy because at the end of the day, the outcome of such kind of impunity in terms of even nominating and appointing individuals of questionable integrity has come to pass, where they have not been able to perform, but rather have gone into government and mismanaged public resources, plundered and looted public resources. We now have a number of scandals in place. And recently, again, with the appointment of the new cabinet secretaries, the case of that of Oparanya, for example. I mean, EACC said they do not approve him for that position because, again, he was having an ongoing case. But what happened? We saw a clash between the ODPP and the EACC. We have seen impunity again. We see Parliament already approved this individual to go in as a cabinet secretary. I mean, what is basically happening in this country? That is not what the Constitution envisaged, especially under Chapter 6 on integrity. And because even at the Constitution, we are electing people with questionable integrity into these offices, who then come appoint people again with questionable integrity, we end up seeing the manifestation of this in terms of management of our resources. So that is really an issue that really affects broadly, and the manifestation of this kind of impunity and action has gone far and wide. Look at the public services today. I mean, these are being auctioned. The education sector in this country of collapse. The university students right now, especially those from poor backgrounds, are unable to further their education. What are we doing to our children? Those in primary school right now, teachers and parents are confused on where to take their children, on what direction their children are taking. So it's really a sad state of affair, despite having a progressive constitution, one held globally as a progressive constitution. Not much is happening that can be able to inspire hope in many Kenyans. But we are happy that these youthful Kenyan protests have really signaled a new dawn in the country, because right now Kenyans are investing their time, Kenyans are investing their resources to gather evidence that whatever accountability is being sought is that one that is evidence-based. So nobody will refuse. For example, Kebaso would fuel his car and go down to where some of these projects have been launched, the ghost projects have been launched, and act. So there's nobody to come and say, that is a lie. There's evidence that this is happening. So I think as I even finalize and continue to celebrate the Constitution, individuals, especially those ones that are in government, that we have bestowed the responsibility at National Assembly, at the Senate, and also at the executive, are continuously failing Kenyans, because every other thing that Kenyan has refused, and yet has the Constitution has been given the National Assembly has been given the power to make the final decision. They have failed Kenyans continuously. Look at the Finance Bill 2023 and 2024. It only took Kenyans to exercise their power directly as guaranteed under the Constitution for us to see the thwarting of the same. When it comes to public finance again, for example, the county assemblies, the law has given them only 3 mandates: to represent, to legislate, and to oversight. But go to counties today. Many counties have now budgets for the members of county assembly. You will see a county government, for example, having given every member of the county assembly 20 million to manage. So are they implementers? Is this not against the constitution? Are they looting this money? And for me, these monies, I see them as a reward to them to continue campaigning even during implementation period, even during a time where they should be doing the 3 mandates. They are continuing to use the budgets at the county to be able to continue with campaigning, so that they can secure their political positions even in subsequent governments and tenures. So really there's work to do, but mine is to celebrate but also appreciate especially the youthful Kenyans for the good work that they are doing in this country in terms of seeking accountability. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Annette. Everybody who's joined us now so far, thank you very much for joining us in this conversation. Tonight, we are looking ahead of the 27th of August. That's next week on Tuesday, when the Constitution of Kenya will be marking 14 years. Annette Nerima, who's just spoken, is a public finance practitioner. She's just set the stage and the scene for us on the conversation that we'll be having tonight. Our keynote speakers are Boni Mwangi. Boni is an economist and a certified public accountant. If you follow him, you've seen on X, he's been very, very, very active. He's taking time, a lot of time, to painstakingly go through our budgets for counties and specifying the counties that he's going to. He has said he's going to go through all these 47 counties, looking at 1, 2, 3 financial years, and looking at how money has been spent in those counties in terms of budgetary allocations, actual projects implemented, and where else the money has been spent. And he'll be speaking to us shortly. We also have Morara Kebaso. Morara has also been very, very active on X. He's taking his own time as well, going around the country, looking at projects that have been earmarked for development and they've been launched and how far they've gone so far. Some of them have been launched multiple times, and we've recently seen a response to him coming from State House on trying to, set the record straight on some of the things that he's raising. Still, the issues remain. A project was launched, a project was then cancelled, a project was relaunched. So what has happened in the intervening period? If the impact of that was meant to go to the people, if a project was initially launched in 2013 and it is then being relaunched 8 years later, or 5 years later, or 10 years later, what does that mean to the people who are the intended beneficiaries of that project? What is the value for money for them from the government? And that's the question that Morara has been raising. He'll be speaking to us shortly. I first want to introduce to you Betty Okero. Betty has been also in this on this matter for many years. She's a governance and women's rights practitioner. Betty, as you come in, I want to set you off with a couple of questions. Like Annette has reminded us, the Constitution basically sets various areas and says this is how we are going to make sure that the public benefit from the Constitution and from being in this country. It sets in checks and balances. It sets in Parliament and the county assemblies and gives them the powers to oversight, and says this assembly of the representatives of the people will be oversighting the executive in everything that the executive is doing. It also brings in the independent offices, the Office of the Controller of Budget, the Office of the Auditor General, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, sets in commissions, Commission on Gender, Commission on Equality, on Human Rights, Commission on Cohesion, Commission on Ethics and Fighting Corruption, the Commission on making sure that the public are getting benefits from their government, and if they don't, they go to that commission on administrative justice, the ombudsman's office. There's a judiciary that makes sure that then it arbitrates, and the judiciary is meant to be the place where we go to as a last resort, either to seek interpretation of the law or to go and say that we are not getting the services that we should be getting from the government. All these offices set by the Constitution so that there's accountability for everything that the government is doing. Have those institutions delivered over the last 14 years? Betty, over to you. Betty, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me now? Sorry,
Yes,
I had
yes.
not said.
Okay.
So thank you so much, Eric. And I want to thank everybody who has joined us today. I think generally Kenyans are struggling to understand why Kenya continues to crawl when there's so much potential as a country to do much better. In response to the question you have asked, I think for me, I would respond by saying that our leaders pretend not to know right from wrong. They have continued to operate like as though we are in a gray zone, not understanding the boundaries that the Constitution provides, or the principle or the moral standards that are set in therein. And so, operating in this gray zone gives them an opportunity to not have to adhere to the spirit and the letter. There's also an attitude of convenience. So they decide when they think it works for them. And I can give you an example, especially when you're talking about the 2/3 gender rule, where we saw the convenient attitude that was displayed, despite the meetings upon meetings, the court rulings, the pretense with the Duale bill that was presented, which went and died on the floor because it lacked support, or even the frameworks that are put in place. But there are no resources to be able to ensure that those work, no resources to be able to address inequality, to strengthen justice, to address the disparities that we see. And on top of that, that if Kenyans are asking for accountability because of the shameless silence that we have witnessed from the different institutions that we're talking about, or if at all they respond, it's very feeble, or if it's not that, they demand from citizens to be able to give them the evidence, even where that evidence is looking and slapping them right in the face. It just goes to show how everybody has decided, those people in positions of responsibility and power have decided or taken a position that they are not going to do anything. But it also goes back to we as citizens who have also accepted the notion that there is only a clique who are supposed to be responsible for managing this country, for responding to issues. And I think one can be able to see that from the way the Gen Zs or the issue around the protest by citizens was dealt with. So we are reminded daily not to rock the boat. And we are reminded by their inaction, but we are also reminded by their action. So you do have sometimes, the different independent and state offices acting, but we never see them acting in the interest of citizens. I mean, how many times have we seen matters in court that are then removed for lack of evidence? You've got the Office of the Deputy Public Prosecutor coming in and saying there is nothing, where you have got the investigator saying something else, or the ESCC reporting that no, we had enough. There's a complete disconnect within the institutions, and they're all not talking to each other. And that has allowed for the sort of creeping impunity that one witnesses. And when citizens come on board, because they are not going to settle with what Kenyans are now calling a crime scene, they are reminded not to do that in the most evil and horrendous actions. It either by fiat decrees that we see, chilling threats, insane intimidation. We saw people, being tortured, people being abducted. We have heard of people disappearing. And in spite of all that, there has been cricket silence from these institutions. I mean, I must commend the Kenya National Human Rights Commission for at least coming forward and speaking and doing their bit. But the other organizations have completely been silenced. And we have got a problem. We must be able to address the what we call state capture of organizations. And Kenyans need to start paying keen attention as to who are elected and appointed in some of these institutions, because it matters who you put there, because then you're able to see the impact of the people we put there through the inaction that we're now witnessing. So as we're reflecting 14 years later, given that 14 years ago we started with jubilation and joy and felt this burden of, it didn't matter what tribe I came from. It didn't matter what my status was. It didn't matter what region it was. That's what it meant in August 2010 when we promulgated this constitution. And yet 14 years later, and I want to give a big shout out to Gen Z for having the courage to confront the inequality, the disparity, and taking over the responsibility that should otherwise have been placed on these independent offices. For exercising their civic responsibility, we actually saw what happened. There was silence. In fact, so many people now have been silenced because of fear and inaction. And somehow the conversation around rights, freedoms, governance, accountability, corruption, and the rule of law is now, we're being told, is the exclusive right and dominance of single groups, whether it's in parliament, whether they say that they are your MCAs, or whether it is your Senate. They're the only ones who feel that they have, and that the threat by Kenyans to be able to demand accountability because of a failure of a watchdog institution has resulted in the staggering price that we now see. In fact, it goes to the point whereby there's a threat to the end of human life, and it's not okay. And I think for every one of us, it should give us pause that we as citizens, where the Constitution says that we are sovereign and we have got power, we are then being told we cannot talk about things that affect our lives. Basic things that are so important in our dignity, we're now being told are not our forte. Instead, we're being told that we should shut up and let other people take charge. But I think the other issue that we have to deal with also is the socio-political context, which is, if you go everywhere, it is littered with so much bragging and a lot of utadu from our Kenyan leaders, Look at our social media. And I think I've also seen, and also I want to give a big shout out to Bonnie for having the fortitude to do the work that they're doing, that you're doing to ensure that this is, because it is exhausting to just be able to write every single day and see what's going on and yet be told that, well, whatever, because that is really what we're getting. And that it has also led to the detachment by citizens to stop trying to address what ails Kenyans. And for that reason, I think many Kenyans were so happy when we saw the young people coming out to the streets, because I said enough is enough. They went out to shout and say, we can do better. We want to do better. We must do better. They want to reclaim their country. And the robust action that was taken by these people was important. We saw a bit of action. We saw the withdrawal of, the finance bill. But we've also seen it coming back. And the question we're asking is, why is it that all that effort And all the sacrifice that made has meant nothing to Kenyans. And this is the reason why I'm talking about this bragging that they have, you just wait, you shall see. Or even if, what will you do? It is every single day that we get to be able to hear that, to see that, the lack of values, the fact that we're using, ethnic politics to be able to divide, so that even when we are trying to speak out because our watchdog organizations are not doing anything, we then have fellow Kenyans, unfortunately, telling us, shut up, and then trying to create a whataboutism and saying you will all just peter off and die. When I speak to a number of Kenyans that I work with, and I meet every single day, they tell me how they're struggling to make ends meet, how they cannot even put food on the table. They're not able to meet their parental obligations. I think there's so many of us who know of people, of parents, who make a choice about who they're going to take to school. They make a choice about who is going to eat what on what day. They're either dodging their landlords because they cannot afford to pay their rent and they have defaulted. They're unable to pay electricity bills. And all this is compounded. And yet every single day, we have to deal with scandal after scandal after scandal. Huge sums of money that some of us are unable to know how to count. And it happens. And there's no action whatsoever from our elected leaders who are a watchdog, from the institutions who are being paid and taxed with the responsibility. And there are 15 independent offices, 15, and there's nothing. So you have the National Police Authority not able to rein in the police when they're misbehaving. You have the ESCC just looking and passing by, even as the auditor reports are being given. You have the Commission on Administration of Justice, who never spoke, uttered, was not present at the point when young people were being arrested and being charged with false, charges on their charge sheet, never came out. You have got Teacher Service Commission who are not uttering a word, yet we're being told that there are schools that are getting money and they do not even exist. The response, the lack of response is something that we should all rebuke, but we must be able to speak up and tell them. If they cannot do the work that they're meant to do, we have to get rid of the people who are there and demand that we have the right people who are able to do this. So Kenyans now, for me, Gen Z started a conversation. They started a movement, they started an action, but they need backup. And we need to apply different strategies. We need to be able to rise up and say we're done. Because we were there in July when Kenyans said they were done, and they acted collectively with one voice and one purpose. But all that was chilled into silence because of what people were experiencing. But we didn't come out as Kenyans to be able to give backup, to be able to speak out, to be able to defend, to be able to protect, to be able to go on the street and also be counted as one, or to do things that were important, because Kenyans now are the only oversight or watchdog institutions that we have. So we need to be able to back each other up. We need to be able to say that we cannot have rejected a finance bill and now we're being told it's being brought back. And the reason why it's being brought back is because we have bills, we have debts to pay. And nobody has been able to explain to Kenyans how much, when it was borrowed, what it was borrowed for, where it has worked. We are yet to recover from the staggering billions that we're losing in corruption. And now we're being told that we're going to bring it back and increase the same taxes that we were refusing. I worry that this time, when Kenya, our house Kenya, was on fire, and Kenyans built out this time, I'm not sure we'll be able to get back. But we as Kenyans need to be able to prepare, because if we do not speak out, we end up being the only ones who suffer. The others are comfortable, and I think we have seen the massive amounts of money that they are earning. I mean, this insane greed this insatiable greed to be able to amass tons and tons of money is something that continues to mind boggle everybody. And, thank God, Bonnie has been able to break it down in languages that we can all see. But apart from that, Kebaso is telling us, hello, you think that the scandal is only in the reports? The scandal is actually in the physical absence of things that are being done and yet being quoted to have finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Betty. And thank you for that as well. Remember, everyone, as we're talking about all these things, for example, right now, the conversation that, is alive in the country is on education and access to education for everybody, right? So we keep saying every year that the huge chunk of our budget goes towards funding education, directly over 600 billion shillings. Indirectly, there's a lot more. 30% of CDF is going into education in terms of bursaries. There's bursaries from the Ministry of Health, of Education, bursaries from the presidency. And now the conversation is all this money actually making sense if the people who need uh, to have access to education, which is all children of the Republic of Kenya, are all struggling to get access to education in one way or the other. Is it helping us or is it not? It's time for us to bring in our big speakers for tonight. I'm going to start with Bonnie. And Bonnie, I know you have another call that you need to pick in about 20 or so minutes. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes so that you start off. We've seen the work that you've been doing, Bonnie. You have decided to take up the issue of accountability at county level and looking at how our money is being spent at the county level. First, I want you to tell us who Bonnie is, what you do, and why you decided to do this. And then I'll ask you the next questions of what's happened. Just, it's good for us to know who is this Bonnie Mwangi who's been doing all these conversations. We know another Bonnie Mwangi.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Awesome. So thanks for the opportunity, Eric, and thanks everyone for joining this discussion, which is coming at a very important time for our country. So my name is Bonnie Mwangi, born and raised in Kenya. Although I've spent a lot of my life in the US and Canada, I left Kenya as a teenager and came to the US, trained as an economist, studied law, and I work as an economist. And so the reason why I started looking at some of these things is, as an economist, I look at where our country is right now, look at our potential, and I see a gap. And so I started looking at how we are spending money in Kenya to see if I can identify what seems to be the issue. So let me just start off by making a few remarks, and then I can take your questions, Eric. So the first thing I want to mention is that as a country, today we are sitting on almost 11 trillion shillings in debt. So 11 trillion. Much of this debt was accumulated over the last 10 years. So if you think about our country, since independence to about 2013, we never had debt. I'm talking about national debt that was more than 2 trillion. So think about all the development that you saw during the Kibaki years. All of that stuff never had more than 2 trillion in debt. So we got our new system of government, and since 2014 to today, 10 years, we've accumulated 9 trillion additional. So we're sitting on almost 11 trillion worth of debt. And because of this debt buildup, today our country is having to spend 60% of every shilling that comes in through taxation just to pay interest. Not the principal, just interest. So just think about what that means, right? Before we spend money on national security, before we spend money on education, before we decide how much to spend on healthcare, 60% goes out the window to pay interest. So just think about the missed opportunities as a country in terms of our ability to improve our lives, in terms of our ability to invest in infrastructure, in the future of our children, right? That's the natural consequence of fiscal indiscipline. And if you look at the last 10 years, since we've got this new system of government, we are running budget deficits to the tune of 1 trillion every year, 1 trillion shillings every year. And so, just think about where we are as a country right now. As much as we are unhappy with our situation, if we don't change directions, just think about where we are right now. We're sitting almost 11 trillion in debt. Just look forward 10 years from now, right? We keep adding a trillion in debt. We're going to wake up with 22, 23 trillion shillings in debt in the near future. I don't think any of us wants to be in that kind of a situation. And that's why we need to have this discussion today. The next point I want to make sure that I point out is that as a country, we wanted devolution because we wanted to bring accountability to the local regions. We wanted to bring development. We wanted to bring services and accountability locally. So we are spending 400 billions annually, sending that money to the county. Again, I point out that because of our fiscal discipline, 100% of that money that we're sending to the counties exactly the money that we are borrowing. We don't have it, right? We issue them a credit card. And so if we're going to do that, particularly if you're going to spend money that we don't have, I think it behooves us as a people to ask whether we are achieving the objectives of devolution. Are we making progress, right? And then, as someone who spent a lot of time looking at some of these matters of the last year or two, I can tell you today that we are not doing what we should be doing. We are not improving lives. We are not serving the people. We are not solving problems. We are not bringing services to our communities. And so I think the questions that I will challenge all of us to ask ourselves are the following. One, is our structure of government necessary and sustainable? Do we need it? And can we sustain it? And I think the answer to me is an emphatic no. And here's why. I just told you how much money we have today in debt, right? We are spending 60% of every shilling that comes in through taxation just to pay interest. We are sitting on 11 trillion worth of debt. We just can't afford it. Even if the structure was serving us, we can't afford it. So we have to make changes today. Second thing is, only in Kenya do we feel the need to have this many people representing us, right? I live in Texas. Many of you, I'm sure, know that. And so I'm going to ask you to allow me to use Texas as an example, right? Texas as an economy, or has an economy that's 21 times bigger than Kenya, right? 2.3 trillion USD is the economy of Texas. Our economy in Kenya is about 110 billion. In fact, the city that I live in, Dallas, one city has an economy that's 1.5 times bigger than Kenya. So just think about that. A city like Dallas has an economy that's 1.5 times the size of the Kenyan economy. But if you look at representation in parliament, it's a very different picture. With that size of an economy, Texas has about 180 people in the parliament, 30 in the Senate, about 150 in the House. So that's 180. Look at us in Kenya. We have 290 MPs. We've got 47 senators. We've got 47 women reps. We've got governors. And then we have 1,450 MCAs. Why do we feel like that's necessary? What is the point of it? And so I believe that we don't need that many people representing us. We cannot afford it. We need to make changes. Second point I want to point out is the following. Our politicians in our system are eating up the vast majority of resources. And so this is what I mean. If you look at compensation for politicians globally, our Kenyan politicians are the second highest paid in the world. Second highest. When you consider the size of our GDP, that's higher than the US, higher than the Netherlands, higher than Canada, higher than the UK, Switzerland, Germany, and on and on and on. Why are we doing this? What is the justification? Why do we need to pay someone more money than a senator makes in the US? Right? It makes no sense. We are a country that cannot afford this kind of fiscal indiscipline. Next point I want to point out is this. If the idea of devolution is to bring accountability and services to the people locally, and if the idea is to bring development, right? If I take a county like Migori and say they have a budget of 9 billion, okay, well and good. But when the money gets to the ground, what we are finding out is that the county assembly on its own is probably going to take 1 billion of that money. That's the budget for the county assembly. Then the executive office, the governor, they're going to take 1.5 or 2 billion. So now you've got 30% of the budget is gone. Just those two line items, right? Then you find out that the rest of the money, the rest of the amount that's left, 50% of it is going to salaries, and then probably 25 on ridiculous amount of allowances. I have never seen such kind of allowances, responsibility allowance, tuition allowance, risk allowance. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We cannot afford it. And so when you really dig down and say, okay, we sent 9 billion to Migori, how much actually ended up serving someone? How much was actually used to serve someone? Very little, very little. I'll give you an example. A county like Migori, they have a budget of 9 billion every year. Can you believe that that county spent 1 billion in 1 year on domestic travel? How is that possible? In a small country like Migori, how do you spend 1 billion on domestic travel? And then when you look at that country's ability to support itself, it's what we call own service revenue, right? The idea of sending this money to these countries is that you're trying to equip them with what they need to put themselves in a position to attract investment, to be able to attract companies coming there, to be able to attract, skilled labor, for example. When you look at how they're spending that money, none of those objectives are being met. We are spending money on things like, for example, I was looking at some of you guys may have seen what I my post yesterday about the county of Siaya, right? They spend more money on the governor's office and the deputy governor's office. They spend more money on the county than they spend on 90% of the departments, on things like education, things like healthcare, things like childhood services. They spend more money on themselves than they spend on those important services. And then they spend 10% of the budget on domestic travel, right? It's ridiculous. You can't do it, and I'm not sure why we keep doing that. Then when you look at the balance, right? The balance of money that's not eaten up by salaries. It's just disheartening to see what's going on. You have a county like Seattle that have a 34% poverty rate, right? Per capita income of about 131,000. And when you look at how they're spending the money, I know the law says that they need to spend 30% on development. And so we have to think about what actually that means, right? When we say 30%, what do we mean actually? It's not just setting aside the budget of 30%, but then when you look at how they spend the money, it's not actually development, right? Building latrines is not development. Digging boreholes is not development. Spending, I'll give you an example, something that really shocked me yesterday. Looking at the county of Siaya, their biggest expenditures in terms of development included, the biggest one was 160 million that was spent on fencing ward offices. That's not development. You're spending money to fence politicians' homes or offices. That's not development. They spent 150 million to build apparently halls to meet people. That's not development. Okay, and then they spent 117 million for boreholes. We are wasting everybody's time. We are wasting important resources. We just can't afford to continue like this. And so, we're having this discussion at a very important time in our country. We need to hold our politicians accountable. We need to demand better. And then for us as citizens, we need to really get involved. The time for passive citizenship is over. We just can continue hoping for the best. We have to get involved, and we have to make sure that we think about the people that we put in office. 90% of our problems, to me, can be solved by voting in the right people. Because if you put in a parliament that has people that don't know what it means to actually be a member of parliament in a constitutional democracy, they're not going to help. Our country takes 9 trillion in debt in 10 years without having shown any ability to service that debt. I'm an economist. I've spent a lot of time helping companies globally in things like financial arrangements. If you walk into my door and you tell me that you're looking to borrow $1 billion, I'm going to say, okay, I need to see your balance sheet. I need to see that you have the ability to take on this debt. I need to see that you'll be able to service the debt. How is it that our parliament does not require that of the executive branch, right? How do you raise national debt by 450% when our economy, which is a proxy for our ability to service debt, only improves by 130%? You're going to have a problem. So we need to think about the people that we're sending to parliament. We need to get involved, and we need to demand better. And so for that, I will, step back and take any question I may have.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. There are a couple of comments that have come in, and then I'll ask you a question. I see. Will you ask about the promise on reducing the advisors and also public services public officers who are 60 years? Information is an enabler. That's what Victor is saying. Data is power. Thanks to power of technology and Kibaki, Kenyans have access to both as information and power. Discuss on how this aspect can be utilized, just as we skipped landlines and went straight to mobile and to M-Pesa. Jacoraro says the former Treasury CS seemed to understand the problem once he left office, similar to many failed politicians. How can the Kenyan Constitution compel these people or such people to be charged for negligence? It's a good question, a good way of putting it, and a good issue being raised there. I'm going to come to you shortly, Bonnie. And the question that I want to ask you is, you raise these issues, and they're very, very good issues. And the way you actually break it down, you break it down in such a way that people can understand, people can see. When you say, for example, Migori has spent 1 billion shillings on domestic travel, and then looking at and comparing with how much money has actually gone to actual service delivery for the people, how much money has gone to hospitals that are supposed to be serving the people, or to ECDs, or to agriculture that goes directly to the people. You see, and you clearly put it out there that there is no comparison, that money is actually going to the wrong areas. What would you like to see citizens do when they consume the information that you give out to us, and others would like to participate in such? Because we're talking about raising accountability by the people. What would you like the people to do?
So I think the most important things that citizens can do is to actually make sure that they keep politicians accountable. Every bit of information that I use in doing this analysis is public information. There's nothing that I get from a whistleblower. Go to the Office of Auditor General, look up your county, look at how, look at the budgets, right? So first of all, go to your county's website, look at the budget and look at how they're spending the money. Our law basically requires these people to tell us how they're going to spend the money, and you can see enough detail to be able to see, for example, how much they're actually spending on themselves versus how much they're actually spending on services, right? You can see that. They hope you're not going to look at that, but that information is available there. Second thing is go to the Office of Auditor General, read these reports because they're issued and they're on the website, and make sure that you are communicating with the politicians and letting them know that you know what they're doing, right? Because politicians, the last thing that they want is to lose elections. They don't want to be kicked out. So the moment they see that the average citizen is thinking about how the money is being spent, the behavior is going to change. Most importantly, I think our biggest weapon that we have to solve this problem is to make sure that we vote for the right people. Again, I don't think we have an issue of having no laws in our books. We have a lot of laws, right? So it's not like we need to come up and invest, come up with new laws. They are there, but because we have thieves in office, and how can you explain, for example, a situation where, in Turkana, for example, massive looting, billions of money spent and lost, right? Under the previous governor, Governor Nanok. That individual today is working in State House. You and I are taking a salary. How is it possible that we can have that kind of a situation, right? We just saw recently the president announcing a cabinet made up of people like Oparanya, who his own EACC told do not touch this individual with a 10-foot pole. And the president still feels like he has enough impunity to be able to do something like that. So we need to demand better of ourselves, and we need to demand better of our citizens. And hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Bonnie. And yes, that's a good point to actually raise, that as we talk about our Katiba, as we look at our Katiba that is now a proper teenager, as Annette reminded us, 14 years of the Constitution, we need to be more active. We need to demand better. We need to be more aware of our power as citizens and the agency that citizens have. Bonnie, thank you. We'll come back to you shortly. I want to bring in Morara Kebaso. Morara is another person who's also been very, very active on these matters, has taken it upon himself to dedicate his time, his energy, his money to go around the country and just look at projects that are on record as being implemented. They were launched, they are now going on. So what's happening to those particular projects? How are they being implemented? Morara Kebaso, karibu sana. Thank you for speaking to us tonight. The number of projects that you have raised in this country, if I was to ask you to just summarize what you see in not one sentence, make it a paragraph. If you were to summarize what you see in a paragraph, what's the state of our development projects?
Well, in a paragraph that Kenya is a crime, we are living in planned poverty, and these people do not advance any program or project unless they are benefiting. I've been touring the whole country trying to find those dead projects where money has been spent, but there's nothing to show for it. And I've found so many. I'm even trying to find a way of how to visit all of them because there are excessively many. Kenya is full of tombstones and abandoned graves of projects where money has been spent and there's nothing to show for it. That is despite the fact that our public funds has also been pilfered and put into personal accounts to earn interest and in money market funds. My findings are shocking. And in my episode of the Vampire Diaries tomorrow, I want is going to shock you. Should I continue, Eric?
Morara, continue. Go on.
Yeah. So now, fellow Kenyans, a time has come when we must take charge of our affairs. A time has come when we must realize that our country is being auctioned, and if we don't find a way to save it, we are going to lose it forever. We are being led by a government which I can, in the best words possible, I would describe it as a criminal enterprise of criminals well organized and creating a theater and drama for us in a way that may seem like there's something they are doing, when in actual sense there is absolutely nothing that they are doing. I'll mention for you some of the projects that I've been able to visit and what I found out there. And I'll tell you about some of which I'm yet to visit. For example, my journey began at the Devki Kinani Road, which is in Machakos. This road is 25 kilometers. It's supposed to join up to Joska. It was allocated 1.78 billion. So far, 456 million has been certified for payment. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing to show for it. There's just dust and a few culverts, more dust. And the governor of that county lives on that road. I went to Olkejuado University, which was launched by William Ruto on the 3rd of September 2020, allocated 600 million by the county government of Kajiado. Nothing but an abandoned stone. Even the name William Ruto has been stolen. I went to Ngong Sports Complex, which was allocated 198 million. The contractor has already been paid 50 million. Nothing. Nothing but bushes. I interviewed some of the youth from a local club that is trying to train Ngong, and they've been trying to slash the bushes there, but it's been a very difficult job. I went to the Tuala Sholinke Road, which was allocated money by the Kenya Roads Board under the road maintenance levy. Remember, Kipchumba Murkomen said that they collected over 96 billion from the road maintenance levy. That road was allocated money. It is so bad that even the residents of that area have been contributing money from their own pocket to try and find ways of making the road for themselves. So far, I'm in their WhatsApp group. They've contributed 371,000 and they're still contributing to try and maintain their own road. Yet they pay taxes. Yet every good that they buy has VAT. Every liter of fuel they buy has road maintenance levy. I went to Muranga, Ikumbi, Karinga, Kagundu Road, launched in July 2023 by President William Ruto. It was even launched twice because CS Mashari had launched it back in 2019. Despite of both launches, nothing, absolutely nothing, in a highly agriculturally productive area. In this case, in fact, it's nothing. Like I cannot even tell you of a culvert. There is ata hakuna maram. Yani, it is the. I went to where the president says in Ruiru, employing 5,000 youth on our digital economy. I found that first, the company that is there employs no more than 1,000 youth, and it's a private company called CCI, which is underpaying our youth, not giving them leave. They work under very toxic working conditions, being, showcased pitched to us as though it's a government project, as if it's a government initiative, as if it's a station for the use of our taxes. You see, you cannot come to Morara's house. You launch my house, which I built with my money. Then you say, tumejengea vijana. Sasa tuko na mpango ingine. Tumeweka another 15 billion ya hawa mama mboga hawa. Na hawa beba. Sasa hawa wote wanaweza kukopa deni ya interest bila interest ili kujiendeleza. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Mimi nitazungumza na wewe mjumbe wenu. Hapa. Tutajenga TTI hapa. Kutakuwa na machines hapo ya hawa vijana kujifunza. Mukisikia mambo ya TTIs and vocational centers, just go to Pokot South. That is in Rift Valley where William Ruto comes from. A technical vocational center has been built using public resources and it collapsed. It fell flat on its face. Yaani nyumba, gorofa, imeanguka chini, imelala kwa nyasi. And public funds have been spent millions. I went to Captain Demi, Wanjohi, Kwamatu, Geta, Kahuruko, Ndunyunjeru. Binafsi.
Morara,
Papa le President la Ufisade.
you're slightly off mic. Yeah, now I think it's better now. Go ahead.
Okay. I went to Captain Demi, Wanjohi, Kwamatu, Kahuruko, Ndunyunjeru Road, which was launched by Papa le President de la Ufisade. He himself launched it on the 26th of November 2018. He launched it again on 6th April 2023. Nothing, and absolutely nothing to show for it. I went to Eldoret Airstrip, where politicians have planted maize and wheat on an airport. And they are using the tractor of Kenya prisons. The impunity, the audacity. I went to Kamarini Stadium, the one which is said in another 6 months, this stadium in Kamarini, which is historical, will be complete. Nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for public funds wasted. His promises amount to nothing. On the issue of stadiums, I still went to Water Stadium. Water Stadium, money spent, nothing. In Water Stadium, the contractor has already been paid 162 million Kenya shillings. 162 million. And what we have is a concrete track, some grass, and a perimeter wall. Just next to that stadium, as if it was not enough, as if they didn't get the message that they are a failure, they have now cleared the bushes and fence. They want to build affordable housing. Before I even speak of affordable housing, how affordable is the affordable housing? Affordable to who? These Kenyans are suffering. They have no jobs. Their businesses are failing. Then you are telling them that you've built for them affordable houses. A bed sitter in Kirinyaga housing program costs 1.7 million. How many Kenyans can afford a bed sitter 1.7 million? And how many will be willing to buy it in Kirinyaga? It's a dead white elephant project just meant to loot public funds. You imagine, you take money from the people, you build them houses, then you sell to the people whom you took money from. So there in Water Stadium, just next to where he wants to build housing program, you can watch my videos on X. He has another housing program that was built by Uhuru when he was the deputy president. The roof is caving in. The houses are they are collapsing. The walls are cracked. 20 flats. Unajua, when I talk about a flat, I mean a flat. I mean a building kutoka chini paka juu yenye kuna several units. 20 flats. All of them damaged. Now we want to build new ones. Where are our priorities? You might think that our politicians are stupid, but are they? They are not. They are professors. Some of them have done PhD. Some of them have even gone to the best schools in the world. This Henry Rotich, who was our cabinet secretary for treasury, that guy studied in Harvard. These people are very well learned. They know what they are doing. They are doing it for themselves. They are stealing without conscience. Unajua hata kama unatuibia, tuibie kidogo tufanyie kazi. But absolutely nothing, zero. I went to another project called Thwake Dam. Thwake Dam is in Makueni. In this Thwake Dam, the shock of my life is that the contractor was paid 236 million extra. Not part of his bill of quantities, not part of the contract, not part of what he was supposed to pay. Hiyo ameongezewa. Hiyo ni kama ya ameongezwa tu 236 million. At hiyo ni interest for late payment. That is pending bills. Pending bills is of public funds. It is deliberate. It is a problem created by politicians who occupy public office to steal Kenyans' money. Even on Nuno Modegashe Road, which is in Garissa, the contractor has been paid hiyo, yani just on top. Hiyo tumekuongeza tu hiyo. Shika hiyo. You go to Ministry of 1.4 million spent on an interview to hire an accountant, and they still never found an accountant out of that interview. Now, why should we even be spending money to hire an accountant yet we have a public service commission? We have a boardroom in the ministry funded by public resources. We have HR, deputy HR practitioners in the ministry hired and paid by public resources, and we are still paying 1.4 million to look. Go to the e-citizen platform. You read the Auditor General's report for the financial year 2020. 15 billion paid on e-citizen platform can neither be confirmed nor denied. The government cannot say for sure whether it had the money or not. They are also shocked that it is missing. They are also shocked that the figures are different. You go to Ministry of Environment. Ministry of Environment is unable to explain how it spent 140 million shillings in one day to plant trees. You know, I'll be taking trees. Let's show you that there were no trees actually. Some of the trees were not even watered, they died. But 140 million a day? You go to Treasury shillings, withdrawn from Treasury to allegedly to buy shares for Africa Trade and Development Bank and shares for Africa Export-Import Bank, Exim Bank, and to buy shares Jamhuri Holdings Limited, ya Telcom. 12.5 billion was withdrawn from Treasury the way you withdraw money from M-Pesa. And it's lost. Nobody can account for it. Ati hata hizo banks zenye tulikuwa tunanunua shares kwao ati hawashiki simu. Imagine the Auditor General saying in the Auditor General's report ati they could not be traced, ati my attempts to reach them were unanswered or they were uncooperative. You steal from us and you are uncooperative. Angalia, we paid an extra last year. We paid an extra 3.1 billion for fuel ati because ship ilichelewa kwa dock. Ati there was a ship that brought oil ikachelewa ku offload pale Mombasa. We paid what we call demurrage charges ya hiyo ship kuchelewa ya 3.1 billion. You know, for you to get to a billion, Kenyans, I don't know whether they understand what a billion is. Me, I've never seen a billion in my life. A billion is 1,000 millions. So when you talk about 3.1 billion, we are talking about 3,100 millions. It's money that you cannot keep in your bedroom unless you denominate it in dollars. You go to London, Kenyans in London, please tell me, our lease for the embassy and chancery building in London expired in 2021. We, the Kenyan people, loving you Kenyans in London, we didn't want you to suffer. We disbursed 1.6 billion in the financial year of 2021-2022 and 2022-2023, 1.6 billion in total for you to buy that building and own it so that it can belong to the Republic of Kenya. We are still paying 60 million shillings per year on rent we purportedly bought. You go to Pakistan, the capital city, Islamabad. We have a high commissioner's residence that we've already paid the contractor more than 400 million for that thing. Today, I was talking to the MP for Kisumu, Shakil Shabir. He told me he went to Islamabad. He was there. The only thing that is there is a wall. Ni ukuta ya 400 million yet. My friends, it is time for you to realize that we are living in a crime scene. We are living in a setup. There is no intention for anybody in this executive to do anything in governance. Everybody is thinking about stealing. The one who has not stolen feels left out. If we don't reset the button on Kenya, if we don't flush it out, if we don't drain the swamp, if we do not close this crime scene for investigations and renovations, bwana, musifanye niwe naongea hii kitu kila siku. I will kasirika and go to State House myself. I will go to demonstrate alone because I'm tired and annoyed. But am I about to stop? Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm not about to stop. Today I was at KICC to attend an event called Okoa Uchumi, which is organized by the civil society. I'm supposed to be a speaker at that event. Then when I'm getting out of the washroom, I meet the spokesman of the government. Then we greet each other, nini. He tells me, we bana, mimi nahitaji namba yako tutaongea. Now, namba si kitu ya kunyima mtu juu, si dem, si ati ananikatia. Wakati nampea namba, cameraman wake ananipiga picha, so that you just know how desperate they are to say, tushalipa Morara. They will use bloggers. Corruption will fight back. They will use bloggers to discredit you. They will go look for your ex-girlfriend and what she can say about you. They will do everything. Corruption is evil. Evil must fight back. But me, I know, whenever you are dining with the devil in the dark, use a long fork. And I'm using a very long fork. And I'm not about to stop my visit for civic education. In fact, that is why I've cut down on my television interviews, because it's taking away the time that I would have used to be on the ground. From tomorrow, I'm resuming the Vampire Diaries Season 2. I'm bringing you a project by the government that is dead and buried and forgotten, and public resources is lost. Kesho, you stay awake to see it. The purpose of my videos is to provoke you. Yes, the purpose of my videos is to incite you. Not to incite you to violence, but to incite you to take charge of civic matters. You are not too small to do something. Even if you have 10 followers, impact the 10. Get this message to your parents, get it to your friends, get it to your village mates. Tell them how corruption directly affects them. Do the little that you can in the space that you occupy, and together it will be a lot. You don't have to do as much as Eric Latif is doing. You may not be able to do as much as Boni Mwangi is doing. You may not be as able to do as much as Morara is doing. Some things are gifts and talents. But there is something you can do. And I want to tell the people in our country who are upper middle class and the rich, don't abandon the fight for change. The rich and the upper middle class in our country, mjue that you bear a very big burden because you are able. Wacha kuacha Gen Z wenye hawana hata pesa ya kujilipia cash bail, wao peke yao ndio wanahangaika huko kwa street kujaribu kuchallenge government. Kijana hata akishikwa apeleke kotini aambiwe cash bail ni 50,000, they can't afford. Akemba cash ben 20,000, they can't afford. The parents at home have to sell a cow. These people are rich in our country, who are the upper middle class. Do something. You as a lawyer, you as an engineer, you as an artist. Umejingangana umepata kakitu. Usiwachilie hao watu. Do what you can. If you can spare 1,000 bob, spare it. If you can spare 10 minutes, spare it. Invest time, invest money, invest your emotions. Let us get this thing done. We are out of time. The clock is ticking. We have very short time to do this. And if by some luck, this enterprise of criminals who call themselves a government get to 2027, my friend, if we vote them in, we will deserve everything they will do to us. If we
Thank
vote
you.
back these criminals and idiots, we will deserve every single thing they will do to us. We need an electorate that is awake and aware. That is why we must get this message to the villages. I was very happy when Kameme FM highlighted my story, because I know the people that listen to Kameme. Najua kwamba mama mwenye ako huko ushago huko Kiriaine, mwenye ako kwa shamba, ameweka redio pale kwa kona, anaendelea kulima shamba. That is the person we are reaching, so that we remove ignorance from our nation. Once we flush out ignorance, there will be no place for these evil people who have taken hostage of our country to hide. That is all I have to say.
Morara, thank you. Thank you very much. Very well said. And, the point of the conversation that we're having tonight is, as we look into 14 years of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, as it's known, let's remember that it places the supremacy of this Constitution in our hands as a people, as the citizens of the Republic. We are the sovereign. Then we have to stop operating as if we are the weaker side and beneficiaries of the Constitution, but that we own the Constitution. And that's why the preamble of the Constitution says that we give unto ourselves and our future generations this Constitution. So we have a big role in ensuring that this Constitution is implemented as we wrote it and as we passed it 14 years ago. Thank you very much, Morara. Morara has been our speaker. Morara is one of our speakers tonight for this conversation, which I'm hosting to say, as we get into 14 years, we are seeing a lot of awareness, more awareness and more civic engagement by the citizens, the ordinary citizens. This has previously been left to civil society actors who have been raising issues, and they're easily pushed aside by being told you're funded. Even now, those that have been active in the recent protests have started being dismissed one after the other, that they were funded, they were raising funds, they ate money, they raised millions of shillings, they misappropriated that money, they have no way of explaining how they spent that money. They're being dismissed and being broken down one by one that way. But what role do we have as citizens in ensuring that we get services from our government, that we implement our own constitution as we give unto ourselves? I now want to open the conversation to everybody who would like to contribute. You can request to be a speaker. I'm just going to give every speaker a maximum of 2 minutes to speak, so we can pick as many as possible. Let's keep it to the role of citizens in pushing for accountability, in pushing for the realization of the ideals of this constitution. And let's hear from you. The first person I want to give the mic to is Josephine. Josephine Nganga, go ahead. 2 minutes, please. Josephine, we can't hear you. I can see you've unmuted your mic, but can anyone hear Josephine?
No, I can't hear Josephine.
Okay. So Josephine, we'll come back to you. Let's hear from Abdi. Abdi, over to you.
Thank you, Eric. You can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for hosting the space again. I appreciate the presentation, though I find the stories from the speaker quite depressing, what we are going through. It's clear we have a long way to go before we can say we are truly free. We are not yet Uhuru. So as we commemorate these 14 years since the new 2010 Constitution, we should have been a moment of pride, but instead it has become one of the deep reflection and concerns and sorrow. The promise of our Katiba was to safeguard our rights, ensure accountability, build a society that has been compromised by and build a just society. But what we have seen is a society compromised by those who have mutilated and weaponized this document to serve their interests rather than the people. People with questionable credentials are leading us in high office in leadership, surrounded by an elite that benefit from the status quo and I would say patronism. Poor people remain the losers. They are back to default setting. You know, Eric, winning election was just the beginning. The real test is about governance. Leading a nation involves navigating complex issues, balancing diverse interests, implementing meaningful policies which go beyond political strategy and requires genuine problem solving and visionary leadership. It's not about forming a coalition or a broad based government. The solution to Kenyan problem is not political. The economic problems is not political. So I would say the 2010 constitution was designed as a beacon of hope, a social contract between the government and the people, enshrining our rights and responsibilities. It was meant to guarantee the rule of law and protect human rights, ensure transparency, accountability. Instead, we witnessed deliberate erosion of these principles. The judiciary, once has been a beacon of justice, has often fallen short, appearing inept or unwilling to stand to those who undermine the rule of law. You know, corruption and impunity have taken root with those in power, acting above the law, you know, disregarding court orders, operating with blunt disregard for the principles of justice. It has become in many ways a banana republic where the rule of law is disregarded, those entrusted upholding instead trample on it. The constitution, which was meant to be our protector, is now being twisted and manipulated against us as a tool used to oppress, silence, and control any dissent. Eric, we have seen the rising incident of police brutality, enforced disappearance, abductions, the persistent disregard for court orders. The very institution meant to protect us are being used to instill fear and suppress dissent. I think we need the judiciary failure to accept its independence and enforce accountability has only those who seek to undermine our democracy and rule of law. I believe this is not what the framers of constitution envisioned, and it is certainly not what Kenyans wanted. I think we are at a critical juncture where complacency is not an option. We must confront the reality of these abuses of power, demand an independent, courageous judiciary, insist on restoration of integrity in our institution, fight for truly democratic and just Kenya for everyone. I also think we must be vigilant, united, pushing back against those who seek to undermine our constitution. The accountability bar, I think, has been raised, but we must ensure it is met. I think the constitution is not just a legal document. It's a living, breathing contract that requires our active defense and commitment. It is the cornerstone of our democracy and shield against tyranny. So I think as we reflect on these 14 years, I think let's recommit ourselves to the spirit of Katiba and to the relentless pursuit of justice, equality, and accountability for all Kenyans, as Morara and the rest are doing. I think Morara and Boni are doing an excellent job to do that. And I think we should also be part of this civic education. And I would say the Constitution still remains a beacon of hope, only if we defend it with the vigilance, courage, and unity it deserves. We cannot afford
Very well said.
destroyed by those who swore to protect it. So I think we should still go. And thank you to the speaker, Morara and Bongi. And hopefully, Mongi will meet on Sunday. Thank you, Eric.
Asante. Thank you very much, Abdi. It's Morara, Abdi. It's not Morara. But thank you. Thank you for that contribution. Let's try you,
Thank
Josephine.
you for the correction.
Let's try Josephine again. Let's hear if we'll be able to get you this time. Josephine, you have the mic. Okay, so there's a problem with your connection or with your gadget, Josephine. We still can't get you Keegan, you have the mic.
Thank you so much, Eric Latif, for this great space that you have given us today. I believe it touches on so many things. Sorry, I joined late because I was also not aware that it was going to be there, and I'm also traveling, so I just had to stop just to maybe give my input. So mine would probably be less than 2 minutes, as you have given us. Now, when we talk about accountability, those are some of the things that were brought up by the recent demonstrations by the Gen Z. But then we also had occasions whereby, people who believe for a good cause that the Gen Z originally stood for, and I supported, actually went ahead and, they started collecting money. Now, when we talk about accountability, Eric, we must ask ourselves why other people are not able to account for the monies that they themselves collected in order to cause for change. Now, when I talk about change, Eric, I talk about change that does not include anarchy. I talk about a constitution of 2010 that we said we shall review after 10 years. So when we cause anarchy to bring change, Eric, we go totally against what the spirit of the whole Gen Z was about, because I believe that is why most of us nowadays are on spaces, though some of us utilized this before it became popular. Now, as for my good friend Morara, I will call you a good friend because I have no enemies. I am at peace with everyone, even those that don't have the same ideals as me. You have talked about provoking. It is good. What you're doing is right, but I also believe that there are powers that are pushing you towards that direction. These powers may not necessarily be, committed to the change that we need as a country. Now, we had Gen Z generals. Yeah, I want to refer to them as Gen Z generals. The Gen Z generals, we know them, and we know that they had their few minutes of fame. So others will also have theirs before it is done. So my good brother, Morara, I see you're a lawyer. I'm only getting to know more about you now. Please remember, before you, there were many. After you, I do not know how many will be left. But please, let us do things in a structured manner, in a way that also brings Kenyans together. Yes, civil education is good, but please, let us do it in a better manner.
Keegan, what better manner would you propose?
You see, I see the way that they try to do things is, first of all, when there was public participation, Eric, I expected that the same people that wanted to shoot down the finance bill would actually be part and parcel of those talks. Why do I say this? Every one of us, Eric, even on your shows, you would highlight these things. Even on social media, you would highlight these things. How is it that they, the Gen Z, never came as a group to participate in this? So now the better way is this: you cannot be leaderless, you cannot be formless, tribeless, and whatever less. Okay, sit down with the leaders of the day, because those are the ones who are chosen and anointed by God. And remember what the Bible says: if you go against those that He has chosen, then there shall be repercussions.
I want to say something.
Oh yeah, I want to give you Morara an opportunity here to right of reply, because Keegan says maybe you're acting under the guidance of some other powers.
I want to assure again that I'm acting on my own behalf, and yes, I'm supported by Kenyans. Kenyans that support me, not all of them I'm sure about their character. There are people that support me who they themselves have their own issues or their own questions, their own questionable patterns. You see, when you're in a political mind, you don't get to choose who supports you. I don't pick and choose my supporters. I'll be supported even by criminals. For me, the bigger picture is, where are we headed? Now, you say we need to have structured engagement, and I am telling you that there's no structured engagement you can have with a thief,
that has stolen your money. The only thing they can do ni kukupanga, kukucheza na kukupigisha vipindi. There is no other engagement you're going to have with them, because they don't come to the engagement with clean hands. They come to the engagement to try and shut down your movement, or to try and bring you down for trying to question them on accountability for money that they've stolen from you. There's no conversation you can have with them, because what will this conversation look like? Will we be telling these corrupt politicians to return our money that has been stolen? Do you think that is a kind of a conversation we can have, that sasa tumeamua tuketi chini tuongee, hii pesa mmetuibia sini mingi, tuna request kama mnaweza rudisha kidogo? That's nonsense. It cannot work in any believable way. The other thing is, you talk about moments of fame. Well, I don't think fame is important. I believe that everybody, famous or not famous, should do the little that they can do. But you should not be annoyed or jealous if somebody else is famous. Remember, this thing comes, and it does not come. Sometimes it comes to people that don't even want it. Some of us, we didn't even wish to be famous, because now I'm living a life that I didn't want to live. I cannot go to a hotel and have tea. I cannot walk on a corridor without pictures of me being taken. So I'm not really happy about the fame, but I'm glad that now I have a bigger platform and a bigger following to continue championing for issues of better governance and an end to corruption. So
Thank you.
please do not be cheated to believe that everybody does something for fame. Some of us actually do these things because we care. And it's not that before we started doing these things, we had nothing to do. We were actually very busy with our lives and had things to do. So the last thing I want to tell you is stop weaponizing religion. That bullshit of telling us that people have been chosen by God is utter nonsense, and it belongs in the dustbin. Because the only way Kenya was colonized is because people came here with a Bible telling us that they've brought us the word of God. That is the same weaponization of religion which people are using when actually churches are laundering money for politicians. You find a church owning a helicopter, a church owns a beach road on behalf of a politician. God did not choose for us thieves. We are the ones who elected these thieves. We are the ones suffering the consequences of these thieves, and we are trying to find a way getting rid of these pieces of shit that have made a shithole out of our.
Enough, Morara. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for that.
thank you
And
so
Keegan,
much,
thank you as well
Morara.
for
I
your
have heard
comment.
you. Eric, also thank you. I may need to go to the listeners now, because I will not be able to take part in any further conversation, because, as I said, I was traveling.
Asante.
I believe Morara will have another chance to have a conversation. Eric, thank you so much, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Asante. Thank you, Keegan, and thank you for joining the conversation. Yes, we'll take all. I mean, we are talking about our constitution, and our constitution says let's engage. And so it's important for all of us to engage respectfully, and engage on all matters. The next person I want to give the mic to is Anthony Muriithi. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Latif. Thank you, Morara, for the wonderful work you're doing. Thank you very much for this space. Now, I'll go straight to my talking point. Number one, it's time for accountability. And the fact that people in government are not asking themselves the very pertinent question. If our leadership is so good, what has made Kenyans so woke about governance right now? If you want to know you're doing a bad job, it's when people start realizing how bad your job is until it becomes a national conversation. Now, the fact that instead of this government reacting to what Morara is doing and ask Morara, okay, this is what Morara is saying. Is it true? Yes. Can you call these people to account? What are they doing? They want to sit down and defend a totally absurd and stupid defense of defending the indefensible. There are things as a government we should not defend. Okay, those are just things. Like when I hear Keegan here trying to compare, I don't know, the president to he came from God. No, God did not vote. We voted for him, and that's why we are holding him accountable. And to refer to the same Bible, when Saul fell out of favor with God, he appointed people like Morara. And the same Saul treated Morara the same way people want to dismiss Morara. My next answer Who has given Morara this job? It is we, the Kenyans, who have appointed him. We have appointed him and given him that duty to go and tell us this is not working, that is, and we support him for that. Him and other millions and millions of Kenyans are having this conversation today. And if work was so good, this conversation will not be happening. Lastly, Mr. Latif, Kenyans have organized themselves, and I'll say it here today to all the 1,000 listeners here. Some of us in our spaces, I co-host with Andrew Tibe every day on X. Kenyans have organized themselves on Telegram. We have a group that is over 1,000 members strong, structured in a very organized way, from people in diaspora to fundraising to organizing at people who are looking at how can we reconstitute this constitution, what clauses do we need to look at. We have lawyers on that panel, doctors, engineers, everything. That is how bad governance makes people. It makes people come together, identify their strengths, and start looking for a way to save themselves. We have a WhatsApp group that is big, and we are still trying to organize for better governance. And let me tell this government one thing. 2027, that battle will be fought online, on WhatsApp, on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on the ground. That is what they are not seeing, and it will hit them in a way they have never been hit before. Because let me tell you, Eric, the only space they can win is on this one. Thank you, Latif.
Thank you, Anthony. Next speaker, Mariam, you have the mic. Wairimo Mariam.
Yes, thanks a lot, Eric. I hope you're doing well. I do have a quick question. Yeah, thanks. I do have a quick question for Morara. It was very interesting to hear him run through the counties and some of the goals projects that are being done and what is being quantified as development. So my question was, who advises the counties, rather who quantifies what is termed as development in the counties? Who's responsible for that, Morara? That was my question, actually, Latif. And where is this information found? Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Mariam, the best person to respond to that will be Bonnie, who's been looking at these counties.
Sorry, Bonnie who was speaking. Yes.
Yeah,
sorry,
Bonnie's here. Bonnie, you can respond to that.
Happy to answer that. So the question you asked is a very important question. And there's no law, there's no guidelines that tells these people what's development. I mean, the idea is used your common sense, right? To me, the premise of development is we are equipping the people with the ability to attract investment. You are basically setting up the county for growth, right? So things like infrastructure, things like communication networks, things like roads, right? Things like utilities that are there, power, things like that. But when you really look at these counties and the way they're spending your money, oftentimes they change things at the end just to make sure that they fit into the law. So, for example, I've seen counties where they buy fertilizer, right? And they might call it recurring expenditure, but then at the end of the fiscal year, when they see that it's going to be over 70%, all of a sudden they call it, development. I was just going over the example of the county of Siaya, right? You cannot tell me that building or fencing offices for the MCAs is development. You're not developing anything, right? When you spend money digging boreholes, right? When you spend money building offices for your politician, that's not development. And if you want to look at, if you really want to get an idea of what we are doing with people's money, just look at a county like Turkana, right? Over the last 10 years, Turkana has received 100 billion shillings from you and I, because that county can only raise 1% of its budget. 1%. So you send 100 billion, and then you look at that county at the end of 10 years and you say, how much development do we have? Have we seen an improvement in terms of literacy rates, in terms of access to healthcare, in terms of schools, in terms of basic services? Almost non-existent. Roads are not there. And you look at a county like Turkana, they can only raise 1% of the 100 billion in investment. They can only raise 1% of their budget. They can only support themselves for 3 days out of the year, right? And when you look at even what they call own source revenue, 50% is from market charges, 25% is from slaughterhouse fees. I mean, what are we doing? How do you invest 100 billion to end up collecting money from a slaughterhouse? Does any of you want to have a $100 billion shilling slaughterhouse? So we, it's not just saying we need 30%. We need to actually put people into office that knows what it means to develop a county, right? Again, I go back to my point is that 90% of these issues can be fixed by putting the right people into office. If you put in someone there who's not serious about development, you're gonna end up with the situation that we have right now on our hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie, and I'm sure you've responded to that question. There are very many other comments also on the comment section. And please continue here so we can continue with this conversation everywhere. DJ Blizzy says, it's not like I'm inciting anyone to violence, as Morara has said, but we have got to fight for our children, and if not for us, and making sure that, we get the right accountability from our leaders. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that the president is clueless. Please alert everyone that this is a manipulation tactic. He's aware of what he's doing. Accountability is the key. That's what Samsung is saying. We need to start involving youth in a mass voters card registration and push for a new party. Will make us occupy every seat in 2027. That's Mawira Nick. The conversation continues there. If you'd like to speak, raise a hand or request. I'm going to give you the mic to speak. 2 minutes, please. Juliet, you are up next.
Oh, thank you so much, Latif, and thank you to Morevi Anthony for telling me about your platform. Great to be in this platform listening to citizen accountability. And I want to appreciate Senior Counsel Morala and, of course, all the other key speakers who are speaking. Mine is just short. I'm listening from London here today as a Kenyan diaspora. But let me tell you, singeweza kufikiria that itakuja siku ambayo Kenyan sisi tutataka kufight corruption. And that is beautiful. And I want to celebrate all the efforts that Kenyans are making. And in particular, I want to celebrate the Gen Zs and all the platforms such as this. But I also want to inspire you with a quote here today. Corruption destroys humanity and kindness. And I'll repeat that. Corruption destroys humanity and kindness. And I wrote that a few years back because I felt that that is something that is really destroying our country. And so I'm really delighted to just be part of this program, to listen to all the efforts. And it is we Kenyans and every one of us took on a responsibility to fight all what is happening in our country at every level, at every space, and ensure that we bring our country back. Asanteni.
Thank you, Juliet. The real Joe, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Latif, for the space and for having this forum so we can be able to engage. So mine will be very quick today. For me, I don't want to really say that our constitution is 14 years old. Probably because for me, I don't think it's a baby that was born, has not been brought up properly, and therefore the baby is malnourished. The baby is supposed to be 14 years old, but still looks like a very small child, like a baby. And therefore, we cannot say it is 14 years old. So we still need a lot of work to do. Having said that, one of the very, very fundamental things, and I draw this from the preamble of the Constitution, is if you look at the preamble of the Constitution, it talks about a government that recognizes the values of human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, social justice, and rule of law. This is where we're getting it wrong, completely. We're getting it wrong from just the very, very fundamental aspects that our Constitution was driving. You look at a leadership that is very, very selfish, making decisions for their own interest and not for the interest of Mwananchi. And just like Morara has said, we are in a crime scene. We are not in a country. We might even say we are in a failed state. If I look at the news every day, I'm shocked. There's an MP trying to bring in an act to limit people trying to exercise Article 37. And I look at this as an assault to the Constitution. Someone who doesn't understand the history of our Constitution and the history of protests in our Constitution and what protests have been able to make us achieve in our country, including even the repeal of Section 2A, then you see that this is a leadership that is only pushing its own agenda. And we have to put an end to this madness. And therefore, I thank the people like Morara who are currently doing we are calling it civic education. I'm going to call this civic evangelism. We are spreading the civic gospel. And therefore, this is the best way to do it. We are winning the information war.
Thank you.
We need to continue pushing. And this is how we get as I wish. Harriet Tubman, in one of her sayings, said that I would have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. Let us ensure that people know that they are slaves so that we can free them from this slavery. Thank you very much, Latif.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. 2 minutes, Grace Olwa. Grace Olwande.
Thank you for the. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Grace.
Yes, thank you for the mic. I think I have 3 issues to address. First of all, I want to thank Morara for the good work he's doing, but I've just seen a post. He was with the government spokesman, so I hope he'll clarify that as well. But as I continue,
He has already clarified, Grace.
If we look at education sector, teachers are not paid well. To an extent, the government has not released the medical cover for teachers. So if generally we look at teaching, at education in general, it looks like buying yourself a Range Rover, and you know very well you cannot afford to maintain the Range Rover, you cannot afford to fuel it, and that is what is happening in our education sector. This system of education, I think the government was trying to implement it, but again, because it is very expensive, the government is not in a position to establish it. Because if we have schools, children learning under the tree, and we want to implement CBC that actually needs practical work most of the time, and also more teachers with less students in the classroom, then it means that this system actually, it's a charade, it's not working. That is number 1 on this education sector. Number 2, if you check the newspaper of yesterday, it is said that most of NHIF workers, managers, don't have a Form 4 certificates. And the ones that have a Form 4 certificate, they are forged. So you can see the kind of regime we are dealing with, which cannot even respect the aspect of education as equalizer, and also does not give people who really deserve to be there opportunities to be there to lead or to work. Last but not least, I also want to talk about where Kenya has to pay 14 billion extra in pipeline construction deal. This is when Treasury failed to release the money that was supposed to be compensated to the people who gave their land to the government, and the contractor is charging around 2-point-something million each and every day. So as much as we want this accountability, the first sector that we should be attacking is the Treasury. And they should be telling us, why are they not releasing money on time? That is first question that we should be asking them. Secondly, when they fail to release money, like the way I saw it last week is when they were releasing 30 billion shillings to the counties. So it means right now we have a constitutional crisis and the Treasury cannot really account for our money. So those are the questions that we should be asking ourselves. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace. Thank you very much for that input. Chris, you have the mic for 2 minutes.
Hello, good evening.
Go ahead.
Hope you're seeing me. Hope you can hear my voice. Okay. First of all, I want to thank Morara. I want to thank Bonnie, and I want to thank you, Latif. You know, we are at a point where, as a country, we were given two options that were not good for us. I didn't vote for Ruto. I voted for Raila. But over the course of the last 2 years, I've realized he wasn't an option for us. I don't regret it, but I want people to take this issue with civil education so serious, because we have reached a point where the corruption in this country is at a level that you can't imagine. Nothing is working. I believe every country has its own issues, but at the moment you audit every county. I have been going through the books of Auditor General's report regarding Busia County, where I come from. You can see how people, or I'll say organized crime on public finances happens. People are just stealing day in, day out. There is no report that you will find that is clear. Every report has issues. Money can't be accounted for, and yet we are paying taxes for it. Every individual now getting out from school, be it in a college, be it in an university, be it in a TVET institution, there is no work, and that is the reality. And anybody getting work, it is the payment is pathetic. You can't keep up with providing for yourself. I remember another MP in Tanzania was talking about issue of ministers and government telling people to employ themselves. Aliuliza swali simple, wewe mwenyewe uko na miaka 40, umerudi kwa wananchi wa kuandike kazi, umekampeni ukashinda kura. Hao vijana wa miaka 20, miaka 18 unawaambia wajiandike wenyewe, watoe wapi hiyo uwezo ya kujiandika kama wewe mwenyewe ulifikisha miaka 40 na ulishindwa kujiandika kazi? So the reality is...
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's leave it there, so we can take as many comments and participants as possible, so we can continue this conversation. More, Robert, you have the next 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Mine is just to thank you, Morara. Keep doing the Lord's work. Unafanya kazi nzuri sana. Don't listen to those who are against you. Keep on doing that job. Is very important. Right now, we know where our money is, where our money goes in form of being stolen. But the key thing about Katiba at 14 is that we started on the wrong foot. You see, from 2013 when our general election, that's when this constitution was supposed to count in full force. After 10 years, we revived it. But what happened is that we put people into office, the president and deputy president, who violated the 2010 constitution, chapter 6, to get into power. So if I come to your home now, Eric, if I come to your home, I get you are not there, I break the door, and I go to your fridge, I get a drink, I sit down, I start drinking. And when you come in, you don't say anything. There is something wrong with me, definitely. So how did you expect Uhuru and Ruto, who violated chapter 6 of the constitution, to respect this constitution? And that's why you see from 2013 until today, this constitution is being violated right, left, center. People with integrity issues, people who are corrupt, the DPP who are supposed to be independent is being tossed around like a toy. He's being told, release this, Kamata, who you name it, there you are. So until we get somebody who is ready to implement the 2010 constitution, we are going nowhere. Hata nimalizia hapo, lakini don't expect anything. Expect Kenya to continue getting deeper into poverty, into debt and everything, until we get somebody who is ready to tackle corruption head on and to respect the 2010 constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to give a few moments to Bonnie Mwangi to speak to us, because Bonnie has to drop off and get onto other engagements. Bonnie, what would you say is your exit remark? And then we shall extend this. I hope, Morara, you can stay with us for another 20 minutes so you can hear few more people. Bonnie?
Yeah, can you... Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay,
Bonnie.
thank you. My party message for Kenyans is this. And I said this before, the time for passive citizenship is over. We have for a long time, in my view, left governing to, and I'm just going to call it like it is, clowns and thieves. We need to get involved, because if we don't get involved, we end up in a situation like the one that we have on our hands. It's a serious issue. We need to fix our country, and we're not going to fix our country by having the same people that have put us there fix it, right? Right now, the reason why we have 11 trillion in debt is because our parliament has not stepped up and made sure that they hold the executive branch accountable. You cannot raise debt by 450% when you can't show that you have the ability to service that debt. We need to get involved. We need to make sure that we're choosing the right people in office, and we need to hold them accountable. Do not be a passive citizen. That doesn't work anymore. Thank you for the opportunity, Eric, and everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bonnie, and I hope to engage with you again soon and in the future just to highlight the issues that you've been raising. Keep doing the good work. I'm sure everybody will clap. Anybody who's able to clap for Bonnie as he leaves, just go ahead and put up that emoji, clap for him and say, Asante sana. Keep doing the good work that you're doing, Bonnie. We are behind you. We are supporting you. We are waiting to consume all the information that you churn out for us. Keep doing that. Asante sana. Ndinda, you have the mic for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Latif. I think my submission is very simple. At this point, I feel like we should extend this civic education to civic participation as well. Because my feeling is that, for the longest, Kenyans have just been participating through voting. And it's for the very first time that we are seeing that the process of governance is more than just voting. I mean, it's just with this protest that I can see a lot of us Kenyans are becoming aware of things like how can we recall our MPs. So how we can participate through provisions in the constitutions in the process of governance. Like at the end of voting, that's not where things end. Then the second thing I would speak about is the translation of the constitution, because I don't think everyone truly understands it. And when I say translation, I don't mean like languages. I just mean like illustrating it in a way that the masses can understand it. When you look at what Morara is doing, for example, it's translating what corruption means to the masses, so that in the heads of, maybe our parents, they are able to understand when we say this government is stealing, it means a certain thing. And I usually refer to the rites of passage in our, communities, where every person would know who they are when, what their responsibility is, depending on what position they are bestowed. So I think in that way we are lacking, where most of us don't know with this new form of governance, because democracy has been brought to us. We do not know what our responsibilities are and how we can participate. I think that's where the translation comes in, so that even the old people can vie for these seats and they can execute, because they know what is expected of them. And as a movement, the last thing I would say is just to keep on sharing each other's work. I don't think every one of us has a big platform or like such big influence, but if we keep on sharing each other's work, because as Morara said, and a lot of other speakers have heard, it's like everybody should do whatever little they can. But I think to push that little, there also needs all of us to like push each other's work. I think that could be very helpful. That's it for me. Thank you for hosting, and thank you everyone for joining, and I'm happy to hear from everyone.
Thank you, Ndinda. Mizani 254, you have 2 mics, 2 minutes rather with the mic, and then Kenya, you also have 2 minutes. Actually, we can accommodate more people. It's 1.5 minutes.
Well,
Mizani, go ahead.
That was quick. Thank you, Eric, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I'll make it very quick.
In 2007-2008, a child that was the age of 5 could comprehend what was happening, and therefore today they are the age of 22. On the 27th of December 2007-2008, post-election violence saw to a number of Kenyans losing their lives. And the 27th of August, like we speak today, August 2010, we would have then a new constitution. So as I speak today, we are looking into Tuesday being another anniversary of 14 years. And one of the fundamental questions that we have failed to respond to is, what is justice? Many believe that justice, it's all about who have their day. But eventually, if you look through and sieve through, Kenyans have been asking about economic justice, social justice. We've even asked about political justice. And because time is not on my end, I will refer us to the first stanza of our national anthem as my closing remarks. It states, or rather reads, "O God of all creation, bless this our land and nation." And interestingly, it goes to justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in unity, peace, and liberty. Plenty be found within our borders. This country has been sold peace, but nobody talks about justice and nobody talks about the plenty that comes with it. It is high time that Kenyans, as we advocate for citizen accountability, we demand for more justice, even as we procure for peace. Thank you, and I do appreciate the time, Eric.
Very well said, Mizani. Very well said. Justice be our shield and defender. Mkenya, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Eric. I'm here specifically to talk to the young people. I'm here to urge you guys to know that we have a huge responsibility and a huge role that we are supposed to play in making of the new Kenya that we want. So this aspect of civic education, I want us to take it as our personal responsibility. Any small role that you can play, whether it's in the village, whether it's in the city, whether it's in the ghetto, any other place, make sure you take responsibility as your personal responsibility, because the political class doesn't have the time and doesn't have the time. We have all the time. The next 30 to 50 years, we will still be around in this country. So guys, don't let our country go to waste when we have an opportunity. Thank you. That was the message to all the young people like me. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Mkenya. Boni Witi, 1.5.
Thanks, Latif. Thank you, Morara. Don't be cowed by guys like Kigen, government apologists, who might want to derail you. We love what you're doing and we support everything that you're doing. I want to talk about two things, Eric. I'm really concerned about the SHIF and university issue. Our education system and the health system. William Ruto cannot, Kenyans know, everyone knows, cannot come out with a policy, a system to help Kenyans. Why are we allowing them, the crooks, to destroy the two fundamental systems in a country, the health system and the education system? Those are the two reasons that can take me back to the streets today. So, to fellow Kenyans, let us not allow these to see the light of day. I've insisted since the time we started these demonstrations, SHIF will kill our health system because the intention behind it is clear: to steal, not to help people. NHIF was working, at least to some extent. It has worked for me. I've seen it work. Why scrap it all together? The HELB has helped people to go to school. It has taken students to school and we've seen it work. Why scrap it all together? Come up with a ghost thing that we don't know where the tail and the head is. We can't allow this to happen. So as we are commemorating this anniversary of the Constitution, those are two things that the Constitution states clearly are rights. The health, the education is a right. Let us not let Ruto ruin that for us. That is all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Boni.
Guys, do not give up. We are on.
Asante, Boni. Redemptor, 1.5 minutes.
Asante sana, Eric. Thank you to the other speakers who seem to have left. Mine is in keeping with the topic, Katiba at 14, as citizens, accountability comes of age. 14 years is a teenager who is just becoming self-aware. If you have ever driven teenagers in a car, you know if they have gadgets on their hands, they will not even look up, they will not look on their side. And Kenya is exactly there. They were doing fine until they started hitting potholes and the vehicles was swerving off the road, and then now they are screaming. Now they've put their gadgets down. A previous speaker asked who decides on what developments will happen in the county. Just as a point of information, that I was very old when I discovered what CIDP is. This is a County Integrated Development Plan, which should have come as one of the best things that came with devolution. Unfortunately, there was no civic education on Katiba in 2010, and it was left to the drivers of the counties. And some were drivers with criminal intent. They had no goodwill, and so they did not encourage citizens to know their rights when it comes to public participation, except the county of Makueni. I had the privilege in 2022, December, to go around. I went around 4 counties to find out how CIDP and public participation works. For your information, a governor is elected in August or September, and CIDP, the budgets have to be done in December of the same year. And what is decided in that short period is what will happen in that county for 5 years. So when I see launching and I see a lot of debate about how it happened, it's because if there's no goodwill in civic education, then CIDP and public participation also fails. My last submission is based on a speaker who came here and started using words that I've heard, that is anarchy, criminals, goons. These words are about Article 37, which should not be a cause of death. The criminalization of voices of dissent is someone who wants to take us back to the old days. Article 37 came so that those who had died, so that people can speak up, so that Morara can do what he's doing. They did not die in vain. And we cannot afford for people to come and use these words so that they remove part of the Constitution. Those are my submissions, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Redemptor. I'll be closing the conversation at past, but we will close with a parting shot from Morara. So before then, I just want to pick a couple more speakers. Kennedy, you have the mic next, and then Nyorude, you'll come in next 1.5 minutes each, and then we'll go to, I'll see who else I'll be able to pick. Many people have requested. I'm just randomly picking and trying also to balance between gender and all. Kennedy, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Eric, for the opportunity. I think without mincing words, we are in an active crime scene. The only missing element is being coded off by the police because they've turned out to be the enablers of crimes against humanity. Everyone is speaking about peace, but peace without justice is equally useless. You know, the rule of law, the essence of the Constitution, justice is the Constitution. So the moment the rule of law and constitutionalism is only applicable to the poor, then we do not have a country here. The role that most of us have been doing of civic education is to ensure that citizenry benefit most from the government policies and programs, something that has been left in the dustbin. Public participation is no longer what it is envisioned in the Constitution, rather a political event where people with differing political opinions get an opportunity to misguide the citizens while using them as stooges to pass their own selfish agenda. The only thing that we can do as a people is to always resist, because if defiance becomes a norm, then we have to resist every other attempt by the executive to usurp all the powers that is bestowed upon these independent institutions. I do ask myself in most instances, how independent is it that our institutions are? They are not yet independent. We are comparing Kenya to developed countries. What we fail to acknowledge is that thieves are being hanged in those countries. When you speak of that, they tell you there is no rule of law in those countries, yet they are doing very well. So as a people of Kenya, it is high time we remain strong because we are on our own. These guys are united to finish us. Thank you.
Kennedy, asante. Nyerude, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Eric, for the opportunity. Mine is to adopt the submissions by most of the speakers to the extent that there is need for citizen vigilance insofar as accountability, pushing for accountability and transparency is concerned. Two things. One, for the longest time, there's a lot of vigilance towards what happens at the national level. My challenge would be that it's about time that we also focus on the counties in our own local ways, in our own little ways. We focus on what happens at the county because counties are subset of the national government. Why is it important? It's important because a rough estimate, if you take hypothetically that every year county governments getting allocated 400 billion as equitable share, then in 10 years, that comes down to 4 trillion that they have gotten in 10 years. It's about time we ask ourselves, have we gotten value for money for the 4 trillion that has been spent in the default system of government? If the answer on this, your guess is as good as mine. Therefore, it behoves every one of us to push for accountability at our own local level. Let those who play it at the national level play it, and let those who play it at the local level play, because at the bare minimum, devolution was meant to devolve or to transfer power, both fiscal and political power, to the grassroots level. And lastly on this is that there is need to ensure that we hold our leaders accountable and check all the processes of the budget. For the longest time, people have been focusing on the formulation stage and neglecting the other stages. Therefore, it's important that we also pay attention to oversight, which is the execution stage, to ensure that which finally got money allocated on, is it spent and is it prudent use of resources? And therefore, if we do not take part in choosing how our money is mobilized and spent on us, then we'll be losing it. Thank you.
Asante. Thank you very much. Sami Moraya, economist, and then after you, we'll hear from Moto Kitchen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Eric Latif, for the opportunity and for the interest of time. I'll take the shortest time possible. First of all, I'm so delighted for the good work that Morara Kebaso is doing. In fact, Morara was my junior at Kenyatta University when I was in second. I was in third year, he was in first year. And I'm glad for what he's doing. And for now, what I can say, Kenyans, we have come at a place that we can say we have become angry enough. And we have become angry enough because of the free education that was offered for us by President Kibaki. So when a generation become enlightened, it's not easily manipulated. What I can basically say, our country has been a crime scene. For example, I have been looking for the projects that are being carried by the county government through the offices of the MCAs. In a ward like Lanetu Moja, where I come from, in Nakuru, you find that a construction of of modern toilet in an ECD center called Mireroni, it was budgeted at 1.4. And again, to make the matter more worse, the ward administrator's office, it was supposed to be fenced, and it was allocated 2 million. I was at the ward administrator's office yesterday. There was no offense there. So what I can say, the economic crimes that are in this country are beyond control. So the government, instead of overtaxing us, let it come to its senses, cut its expenses, fight with the rooters, and fight the corruption. And as an economist, I can say there is no any single country that has ever grown through overtaxation of its citizens. What they are supposed to do, they are supposed to expand they are generally supposed to expand the tax base. And again, according to the new funding model at the university level, that funding model is venomous as venom itself. And again, there is a lot of evil things going on with this NGCDF thing, Because when you see that the MPs are given that mandate to do some
Sammy,
construction work. Hello.
time is up. Time is up,
Yeah,
Sammy.
yeah. Let me patriot. I'm finishing up. When the MPs are giving them mandate of foreseeing works like the construction of toilets, construction of streets and classes, how I wish we can go back to our parliament and bring back the public works, and the public works will be the ones who will be controlling such works. And now the MPs, the legislatures, they are left with so they are left with the work of making laws in our country. And thank you a lot for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sammy. Moto, and
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Linda Stewart from Delaware, Moto Kitchen. And I wanted to chime in to somebody's comment who had encouraged everyone that, we have a role to play as the public. I always say the public because, we are the citizens versus the government, with the policies that they continue to implement without our contribution. So we, at this point, in as much as we are speaking about the policies and where the government has failed us, I would kind of like to throw this statement to my fellow Kenyans so that it can marinate and sink into your mind as we continue with the fight, because pretty much right now with the war in Ukraine, we are actually going to enter into a season of tribulation where we're going to experience famine, for several years. So for me, I would encourage the people who are back home and have generational wealth in terms of land to at least start investing in farming. I know there's many people there who don't utilize their generational wealth, farmland that they've acquired from the family. So that is one critical component that I'd like to encourage you guys. And then I'm going to do my part also by pulling my diaspora team to see how people can also start, tapping into their families back home.
thank you, Linda.
Then one more statement, sorry, that I wanted to say, it is unfortunate that our government has failed to protect us, knowing the role that Kenya plays in Africa when it comes to trade and investment and the infrastructure plan. So I believe that we're in a season where we have to fight to liberate ourselves, because if we don't, we are going to end up being slaves. So keep up the fight and know that Kenyans have always been resilient, and we are the ones who are going to carry the world through this season. So don't back down. Let's do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Conversations are continuing as well on the comment section where it's very engaging. You can go in there as well and add your voice to this. We want to hear quickly in this order, Tevin, and then Dante, and then Daniel Muli. Tevo, go first.
Thank you so much, Eric, and nice to share a platform with Morara, who was dispensing wisdom carelessly. Everything this government touches is either fraud or a scandal. Now they are printing new notes costing taxpayers money, 15 billion Kenya shillings. Yet they have shares on Delaru. This government has sold us to the highest bidder. And look at the livestock bill brought by Kimani Chungwa, land bill, price control bill by Tabitha Mutinda, nights and oil crops bill by Hamida Kibwana. Our food system is under attack. The Maisha cards have the microchips. So you talked about the TB vaccine on your show sometime a while back. I went and did a research. I found that this vaccine is being tested in 100 years for first time in Kenya. They're currently injecting people in Kisumu, Machakos, and Mombasa. I always discuss on Bill Gates and IMF policies on my page, and anyone can follow me. So I want to conclude by a quote from a great leader, Thomas Sankara, that it's either we drink champagne with a few or provide water for all. We are Kenyans, and Kenya is our business. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tevin. Dante?
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much, Morara, for the wisdom you've been giving us the whole of this since we started this fight. Now, what I want to tell our fellow brothers and sisters and Kenyans in general is that we are not supposed to relent. Let us keep fighting, because at the moment we've reached a top notch where the government is also afraid of us, and we are keeping on injecting. So my fight goes against the new university funding model. That thing really sucks, because the children of the poor cannot go now to the school. Look at the student leaders today. They met the president in the state house and they were given some small tips to go and fight this thing to be injected to the student. Now, let us fight this thing, because we need to learn, we need to be educated so that we can fight and know what is best for us. Let us keep fighting until the last time, because these guys are currently making bills in parliament that only helps them and keep them alive till the next election. So let us keep fighting, so that in the end of it all, we win, all of us. Thank you.
Asante sana, Dante. Daniel Muli.
Thank you so much, Eric, for this opportunity. First, I only have 2 points. First of all, I want to congratulate Morara for everything that he is doing. I believe he is giving the president and the entire government sleepless nights. And I wish that all his videos would be shared widely and to everybody, so that the government, specifically the president, will not continue taking us for fools where we are lied to on a daily basis. That is point number one. Point number two is, or my fight is with the issue of ghost workers. And the former CS actually said that has been a problem, that has been that is a plague in the government. And there are audit reports showing that every year billions of shillings are paid to ghost workers. Early in the year in the Narok County, the audit report stated that they had over 500 ghost workers. And any staff who is employed by the government can actually walk into any financial institution using their payslip and acquire credit facility. Now, assuming those 500 staff in Narok County each took a loan of $1 million Kenya shillings, that is over 500 million that has been stolen, that Kenyans will be left to pay for it. And I wish that the issue of ghost workers can be demystified, so that we can be able to understand which county, because I've been in management, every month before payroll is closed, I had to confirm the number of staff within my department, within my branch, before that list can be sent to payroll for salary processing. So the question that comes in, are there people in charge of ensuring that there are the ghost workers within their department? And if so, what are they doing about it? Lastly, the accounts being deposited, that money, the people who are withdrawing that money can be traced, yet the government isn't doing anything about it. So I'd wish that further we can be able to look into the issue of ghost workers and expose that theft and close those loopholes, because we are losing a lot of money to ghost workers. Thank you very much, Eric, and continue with the good work, Morara.
Asante, Daniel. Let's now hear from Maureen Mwenswa. Maureen? Okay, it seems Maureen is not able to join us, or maybe has stepped aside away from her gadget. But thank you very much, everybody, for this conversation tonight. As we are saying, it's 14 years of the Constitution of Kenya. It's 14 years when we have been seeing citizens engaging on various platforms, taking up their role, calling out for accountability, demanding better service of the government, and also demanding better of ourselves as a people. We must continue doing that. As a people, we have a role. We have a role to demand better of each other and better of those that we elect to lead us, and even those that we put in various institutions, so that they can go ahead and provide services for all of us. Somebody has mentioned about the role of citizens in public participation. The first thing is a push for proper legislation on public participation as idealized in the Constitution. The Constitution premises every decision of government to first go through public participation for citizens' input to be put in, and so that then that becomes a decision of government. Is there a law that governs public participation? The answer is no. I think that's one of the things that as we go into 14 years of the Katiba, we must look at. How do we engage when it comes to budgets? Boni Mwangi has, done the work of looking at how money is being spent and how budgets are being implemented. The same thing is happening with Morara, how our budgets are being implemented. How do we, as citizens, participate in the budget making process? There's a county integrated development plan, CIDP. Every 5 years, counties review this. There's the annual development plan that then informs the budget for every financial year. How well do you know this? How well do you participate in this? How much information do you know? Even if you do not go for a meeting, there should be ways in which you're able to submit your thoughts and your memoranda on this. How much do we do that? How well do we engage on our budget making process at the national level? Do we only come in at the tail end when you're talking about the finance bill? Do we participate in thinking about the programs that ought to be implemented by the government? This is all a role of citizens. It's a responsibility that we have. We need to take this one seriously as we demand accountability from government and accountability of ourselves. Before Morara comes in and gives us his final thoughts and closing remarks, I want to go around our other speakers tonight. We had Annette Nerima, who is a public finance specialist and a practitioner. Let's hear from you, Annette, your closing remarks.
Thanks, Latif, and to all the participants tonight. We really appreciate the opportunity to join the space. And so for me, I've listened the entire time, Kenyans actually having a conversation on Katiba, and it all boils down to the fact that Kenyans will not be able to realize the social benefits that have been secured in the Constitution. And this is all happening because we have individuals with questionable integrity in the governance of this country. And these are the people that we have given the power to be able to ensure that they deliver these social benefits to us. And as I close, I think one of the things that is important to even raise, right now we see individuals who have come in, for example, when it comes to matters public debt, they are reckless to a point where they're engaging institutions that give conditionalities that are not in the interest of the ordinary Kenyan. And so they would come back and extort through taxes from Kenyans just to be able to service their selfish interest at this point. When you talk about education, right now, broadly, what we are seeing playing out is a privatization of public services, including the health and education as well. So these are questionable integrity, because a person of good faith, a person who has the interest of Kenyans at heart, would not sit on the table, not even fathom privatizing some of these public services, because the people who benefit from these services are Kenyans who are poor, who are in the low income cadres. And devolution in this constitution in particular, broadly across very many articles, is geared towards ensuring that they provide services to them. Look at Article 43 of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights as well. And so as Kenyans even continue to raise concerns, a good opportunity was presented for the government or the leadership of this country to put it right through bringing on board a new cabinet that will be able to perform, would be able to serve Kenyans. What have we seen? A recycling of same individuals with questionable integrity. We have seen them bring even more. And right now we have a cabinet secretary who is more than willing to introduce the eco-levy. And just a month ago, there were the people who are posting some of these punitive taxes in the finance bill of 2024. What has just changed? For me, right now, as Kenyans, I would say that we have a government where we have the people versus the politicians. And it's high time that we need to ask ourselves, because politicians have regrouped. They have come back bigger and better in their own way. Right now, we have seen the president, for example, go back to a default mode where he keeps on promising Kenyans of goodies that may never ever come and launching of ghost projects. As Kenyans as well, it's an opportunity for us to regroup and ask ourselves, elections are coming, what can we do? And I'm happy with the good job that Bonnie and Kebaso are doing, because right now what you are doing without knowing, maybe you're already campaigning with information, enlightening Kenyans and telling them, and also decampaigning the political class, that these people do not have the interest of Kenyans. These people have questionable integrity. And I'm certain that come 2027, people will elect in a sensible manner. People will elect from an informed point of view. And mine is to urge Kenyans in their own capacity to do that which they can do best within their skills and also based on information and within the law, to ensure that we spotlight this government, to ensure that we are informed, so that come 2024, we can see the change that we have always wanted. Because at the end of the day, we need a change, but not this government is going to give us the change. They have already curtailed the civic freedom or civic space. It's no longer happening. I mean, you go to the street at your own risk at this point. You may lose your life, you may be abducted, but let's ensure that we engage as much as possible to create the change that we have wanted. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Annette. Betty Okero, your closing remarks.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you every single one of us who has been here today and has been patient enough right to the end. I want to finish by just stating that it is important that we understand the leaders we're dealing with. I think we've all seen them when they sneer at what they consider an inconvenience when Kenyans are demanding accountability. And so we also recognize that a number of these leaders are actually held captive by their own self-interest. In other words, what I'm saying is that there is no capacity for shame. So trying to call out their shame is actually seriously lost on them. It's not something that they consider as an issue. The second big thing for me is to be able to talk about how exhausting it can be to be able to deal with the governance and accountability issues, because we are dealing with a magnitude of rot. But it is important for Kenyans that they recognize their worth and their value. And it is that takes people out on the streets. But we also have to deal with the mistrust that we have for each other if we are to survive. Because fighting each other just simply holds us back. It drags us down. It doesn't lift us up. And yet we must remember that we're all in the same boat, struggling to be able to survive. So perhaps we have to stop seeing the enemies in those of us who are demanding accountability and try and see how we can focus our anger and at those who continue to cause the misery and the hardship, and those who are making it difficult for us as we struggle to make ends meet. I think what Bonnie and Morara have done is also just expose the pain that we feel, knowing that even the little that we are, making, half of it is lost. And it's been eloquently exposed by them. But I think also in the spirit of solidarity, let's also try and see how we can start exposing those projects within our own counties. Show them. Let us be one and many, an army of people demanding and showing accountability. Because it is when we deal in our large numbers that it is impossible for one of us to be singled out, to be threatened or intimidated. And finally, I think for me, I don't know, but Kenya is ready for a new foundation. What we have is crumbling and has been for a very, very long time. And I think any more patchwork to it is not going to carry the weight or the burden and the challenges that we are facing. So perhaps it is time for us to wisely use our priceless weapon, which is our vote. And it is time for us to be able to consider the importance of resetting this country, because our worth and our value must continue to drive the change that we want. So thank you very much. And I hope that I'll be able to have further conversations with all of us again in this space as we continue to do and take one step at a time in our struggle to make the Kenya that we want, present. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Morara Kebaso Senior, thank you for joining us for this conversation tonight. And as we've heard from many people who are encouraging you and telling you, keep going. Now it's time for you to close for us tonight's conversation. What is your one message or several messages that you'd like to leave us with tonight?
Watu wa X, hamjambo. Hamjambo tena. Mimi nimerudi hapa X. Nilikuwa nimewaahidi wakati wa campaign kwamba hii express hii na huyu mjumbe wenu bwana Latif, sasa tumeweka mpango ya 10.5 billion ya hawa mama mboga na hawa watu makanga na hawa vinyozi na wale wabeba. Sasa hawa wote wakiingia katika X na kusikiza ndani ya space ambayo imehostiwa na huyu Latif huyu, tutakuwa tunawapea pesa ya serikali ya bure 10 million kila mtu ili muweze kujipanga. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Sasa nataka mnisikize hivi, na nataka mnisikize vizuri. Si mimi ndio niliwaahidi kwamba kati ya miezi 6 Kamarini Stadium will be complete? Ni kweli si kweli? Si mimi ndio niliwaahidi kwamba the stadium in Wote in another 3 months will be complete? Ni kweli si kweli? Sasa hiyo mpango yote mimi nimeweza kutekeleza. Sasa nitaweka pesa ingine kwa hii finance bill inakuja. Na mimi nataka niwaambie hivi. Nataka muombe taifa letu ili tuwe na amani. Nataka kuambia hawa mabishop na hawa intercessors ambao tumeandika katika ikulu kuu waweze kuombea taifa letu ili taifa letu iwe na amani. Hatutaki siasa ya fujo. Hatutaki siasa ya maandamano. Hawa generation zote movement hawa wananiambia ati wako faceless, ati wako leaderless. Si hawa ni watu formless. Nyinyi watu hapa X mnasemaje? Situweke mpango. Situlete kila mtu katika serikali yetu ya bread based, ili kila mtu aweze kupata mtu kutoka kwa kabila lake ambaye anaweza kuiba mali ya umma ampelekee. Ni kweli si kweli? Sijui kama tunaelewana. Now this is what I want to tell you fellow Kenyans. Mimi kama Morara, whenever I do those skits, it's not only for entertainment. It is also for education. Because I know that the class can be boring. The lesson is long. But I want all of you to know that Kenya ni home. Kitu ya kwanza, don't fear to stand for truth. Mtu asikuzie uoga, uko nyumbani. And anyway, don't fear to die. We are not getting out of this alive. We are all condemned to die from the day we are born. The moment you are born, you will die. So usiuziwe uoga ati sijui nini itakufanyikia, what will happen. That is neither here nor there. It is a multiplication of 0 raised to power infinity. It is hot air and it belongs straight in the dustbin. We are at home. We must do constitutional reforms. We must flush this toilet of leaders who have taken hostage of our country. We must finish corruption. We must finish weaponized incompetence. We must finish budgeted corruption in our governance. And you, my friend, who is listening to me, can do something about it. You don't have to be Latif. You don't have to be Morara for you to do something. In your little space, in your little place of influence, in the office where you are with colleagues, in your church, in your chama, when you are out on a date with your boyfriend or out on a date with your girlfriend, spare 5 minutes to talk about bad governance. That is the way we are going to change our nation. Everything begins with a conversation. Everything begins with words. In fact, the earth and heaven as you know it exists because the word came from the mouth of God and it became reality. Kwa hivyo, don't fear to speak. The more you speak, the more people listen. And the more they listen, the more they realize. Do not be discouraged. Usihost Twitter space watu wakuje watu 10. Uone, you know, now me, I'm not a big wig, I'm trying, I'm failing. No. Unaona hao watu 10? Those are your disciples. Make sure you transform the world with your 10 people. There is something every Kenyan can do with their skill and with their talent and with their access. If you are a government official, you work in the government, you are here listening to me today using a fake account, you're worried that you might be fired if you speak too much. Don't worry. tumia hiyo sudo account yako, inbox us, tell us about what is going on in our governance. Give us the information, give us the ammunition, because serikali unapata in a whole ministry watu wanafaidika na hii wizi ni watu 10. The rest are wallowing in poverty, wamekatwa mapesi paka pesa imeisha. Government employees, you are 1 million of you. Msiogope kutetea taifa lenu. Come out and defend it. Like that officer who gave me his payslip today for me to prove to Kenyans that the government did not add police constables 40% salary. It was only 13%. That is a brave man. Everybody akifanya hivyo, I can tell you Kenya will be redeemed and it will not take long. And you people should not be worried. At the street protest imeisha. The only reason we did not succeed is because other Kenyans did not join us. And you know why they didn't join us? Because we didn't spread the gospel to them. We didn't give them the memo. They are unaware of what is going on. They are politically illiterate. We must make sure local radio stations, Muga FM, Kameme FM, Minto FM, Egesa, we must go to those local stations and talk to our people in the language that they understand. Remember, when you speak to people in a language that they can hear, it goes to their brain. But if you speak to them in their language, it goes to their heart. Make sure that in the little space that you occupy, you do the little that you can do for the betterment of our nation. I, as Morara Kebaso, I pledge my loyalty to the people of Kenya. I am your public property. Do not be cheated by bloggers posting pictures and what have you. That is hot air. I am stupidly loyal to the people of Kenya and to the cause. I will not abandon you until we get good governance. And I'm not interested in any governance position or political. I don't want. I just want good governance. Nirudi nikafanye biashara yangu, I will be on Forbes list. Kwa hivyo, biashara ya tokenism, siasa ya tokenism where we are given gifts and we abandon the cause. Ati unaongea kidogo unaitwa, unapewa kakitu. You abandon the people of Kenya. Again, we start looking for another person to take your place. We are not going to lose anybody else. Hii Kenya tutaikomboa. Kwa hivyo, mtu yoyote mwenye anakuwa offered those kind of gifts from government officials, don't take them. That is your money stolen from you. Mtu hawezi kuibia tena atumie hiyo pesa yako kujaribu kukuhonga. Kwa hivyo sisi wote tuwe very loyal to the cause. And let us do this not because we are gaining anything or because we are earning money from it or because we stand to succeed. In any case, some of us stand to lose. But let's do it because we care about our nation. If we die, so what? Who will not die? Even our killers will die. So don't fear. Msiogope na msiuziwe uoga. Fanya civic education. Nyinyi watu 1000 nyinyi. Na nimewahesabu. Nyinyi watu 1000. Kila mtu anipromise leo jioni. Ukienda, utasleep over it. Tomorrow morning, you will touch 2 people or 3 people with the civic education. Nitajua kwamba we've been able to reach 3000 people. Don't abandon the mission. We are going to succeed. It's just around the corner. Do not be discouraged. We are in this together. Use your talent and your skill and your knowledge to do whatever you can do. If you are an engineer, tell us that this road is being built badly. That according to engineering laws and according to this and this and this, the mixture of concrete is poor. The steel used is poor. Tell us, if you are a civil engineer, tell us about our public project where money has been stolen. A road is built. It is supposed to be a 7-meter carriage, a 7-meter wide carriage with 2-meter walkways on both sides. And then the road is built, iko tayari na potholes 1 month later, haina passenger walks. Engineers, come out and talk about this. You are a lawyer. You can see illegalities. Come out and talk about this. You are an artist. You can sing. Come out and sing about this. You are an actor. You can act. Come out and act. Do entertainment as you educate. You are a content creator. Create content about this. You are a photographer. Use your skill. You are a hacker. Hack those websites and get us that information. There is something we call ethical hacking. Wacheni kubembeleza hawa watu and they don't play by the rules. If you can get yourself into IFMIS, no, tulete information later. We are ready and we are tuko tayari kuiweka out in the public. Wewe usiogope, ingia kwa hizo, msikuange mnaingia tu kwa KPLC kujinunulia tokens. Ingia kwa hizo website za hao watu, tuletee information which they are hiding in those systems about the theft, the wanton theft of our public funds. I want to tell you that I don't believe that this government will do anything to advance good governance because they cannot work against their own interests. These are people wenye wamekula na hawashibi. They have a bottomless pit of greed. We must flush them out and it will happen. And I thank God that it will happen during my lifetime. Thank you. Have a good night. Pray for me as I pray for you.
Morara Kebaso, thank you very much. A round of applause, please. Just go on to the stickers and put the claps, and let's all clap for Morara Kebaso. Let's also clap for Boni Mwangi. And you can follow Morara Kebaso on his X. You can just click on his account and see he is Morara Kebaso Senior. And also Boni Mwangi, who's been speaking to us as well, civic education, an economist, a CPA. He's Mwangi Boni. Follow him as well. They have been doing some good work. Asanteni sana everybody for joining this space. We'll host another one soon. But remember, the Constitution is now a teenager. What is it that we see working for our Constitution? I am one of those people that believe that we don't need to touch a single dot or cross from this Constitution until we fully implement it and adhere to the spirit and letter of the Constitution. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day, good night, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Until the next time. Kwaherini.